Rob, I'm getting a prompt saying host disabled participant screen sharing. So I don't know what that means, but I'm here and I can hear you, but the message I'm getting is the host does not allow my video to be up there.
Your video is up there now. We can see the top half of your head, your face.
Oh, okay.
But it's not on your screen?
It's not on my screen, no. Okay.
Screen sharing just means that you can't share documents. Like if you were, when we pull up presentations and stuff, that's what that's about.
Well, I can see all of you.
Okay. All right. All right, let's start. Call the meeting to order. Regularly scheduled Board of Finance meeting for August, what's today, 17th. And we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. First up is the Finance Director's Report.
Okay. Amy. So just a couple quick updates since the last time we met. You have your updated grants and donations. But I'm going to move on to the American Rescue Plan, the ARP funds that we're expecting. So the last time I had reported out to the Board of Finance, I had only reported out, I think, the $2.5 million, which is what the town was set to get. But since then, there's an additional county allocation that Lisa had alluded to before. So the total is $7.5 million that the town will be receiving. The Selectmen has formed a work group to work through how they would like to spend this money. And as part of this work group, they're taking into consideration opinions from various stakeholders, including the Board of Finance. So they would actually like to make a presentation to the Board of Finance in the coming months for what they would like to do with the money and get some concurrence to see if there's going to be support for the path that they want to go down during the budget season. So just a heads up that that's coming. Some good news on our LAP insurance. We received our members' equity distribution as we typically do every year. We had received about $57,000, and this exceeds our budgetary estimates by about $29,000, and we had only budgeted $27,500. So some good news there. And then the last thing, which does not have a budgetary impact at this time, but just something to give you all a heads up about, and I'm sure you saw it in the news, there has been an increased demand for contractor services, and there's some material shortages that are causing delays in completing some of our capital projects. And we have seen some additional costs related to these projects because of the material shortages. So like I said, no budgetary impact yet, but just something that we're keeping an eye on. And then the same thing related to our vehicles, particularly our police fleet. They had ordered vehicles back in May, I believe, and we're only anticipated to get them around October frame. So just a heads up on that as well. That's all I have.
So, Lisa?
Thank you for that, Amy. Excellent summary as always. Just a quick question. There was something in the news today about Greenwich and conveyance taxes and how they're seeing an unexpected revenue increase in that area. And I know home sales in Simsbury have also been in a clip, and was wondering if you had any numbers or insights into our conveyance fees.
Oh, our conveyance fees were up as well. Due to the increase in the housing market. I don't have the exact numbers offhand, but I can send them to you if that's something that you're interested in. Probably something that we'll be reporting on at the next Board of Finance meeting when we do year-end results. So I'll make sure I include that.
Just apropos of that, when is our next reval? Because the prices that are these houses are being sold at is trending upwards also. So yeah, certainly in the $300,000 to $600,000 range. So.
So it is 2022, and we're actually, our assessor's getting ready the RFP to go out soon.
Okay. So just a couple of things. Anytime you're going to be under, you're going to miss a budget, tell us one thing and get another number. You can add $5 million anytime, and that'll be just fine. Okay. Yeah, and you don't have to apologize for that.
Well, what if I subtract it? Is that a problem?
Everybody does understand that there are pretty strict indications of how that money can be spent. So this is not money to be spent on a whim. There are, I don't want to say strings attached, but it has a stated purpose. And so as the Board of Selectmen goes through that process, I'm pleased that they're reaching out to us to engage with us. We'd be glad to do that. Let's try to get that on our agenda in September or October at the very latest. So, their presentation to us and anything we can do to reach out to help with that. Our role, as I understand it, maybe you could correct me, is that we're not priority setting here as the Board of Finance, but we will have a procedural role in terms of approving appropriations as the money comes in and sort of, I guess, monitoring that. Those are our two primary roles? I think so. Okay.
Amy, would you just be able to share the guidelines with the board? You can do it in writing.
Yeah, I actually have a PowerPoint that I put together for the work group, so I'll send that along to all of you.
All right, thank you.
That'd be great. Good.
The same one, Amy, that was given to the Board of Selectmen?
I didn't give it to the board.
Or presented to them?
I don't think so. I think I just gave it to the work group. Yeah.
There was one in their packet last time around. So.
All right. Maybe they included it.
All right. And all of the good insurance variances are good. That's good. And the problems with parts and chips and cars and products and everything is universal. So it's where we live right now. Great. All right. Good report. Any questions or other things that we want to be sure that get covered? Very comprehensive report, Amy. All right. All right. Moving on. The next item is the proposed draft policy for budgetary transfers and supplemental appropriations. Again, kudos to Lisa and Amy doing all the heavy lifting here on this policy. I think certainly over the last year or two, we've had situations where we have questions about when is it appropriate to make a transfer? When is it appropriate to do an appropriation? How do we treat the money that's left over at the end of the year? When should we be doing all of those things? And this is an effort to codify that. Again, the resources here are our own charter and the state mandates in terms of what we have to do relative to our budgets. But as is our custom, we will talk about this tonight. And I know Lisa has some talking points she'd be glad to go through. We will not vote on this tonight. We'll have a chance to digest it, and then we would ask any further questions in the interim and put it back on the agenda in September for approval. I think it's a good working document that will help us when we say, now, what do we have to do? Is it appropriate to do this? Is this what our policy is? I don't think of it as being highly controversial. So if you have issues with any of it, let us know and we can talk about it. Lisa, did you want to talk through any particular points or?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, thank you to Amy for working with me. I usually give her a big mess of research and she's able to take it and consolidate it into a readable form. So congratulations on that again.
You did the hard part, I did the easy part because we arranged it.
I want to thank our liaison, Sean Askham, helped review the policy as well. And of course, Rob was right in there with feedback as well. So thanks to everyone who did that. Basically what the general rule is there's no spending without an appropriation, and most of our appropriations occur during the budget process and are reviewed by the public at referendum. But sometimes during the year, an expenditure is needed that we haven't budgeted for, and you can think of emergency situations or equipment breaks or a pressing idea comes up that is time sensitive that attention that would benefit the town. So how do you budget for that, and how do you appropriate for that? And that's what this policy tries to get at. A couple of key points where there's always sort of confusion, probably with the public, less so with our board and the Board of Selectmen, but transfers within a department, so using current year savings through a transfer within a department only needs approval by the Board of Selectmen. Using current year savings with a transfer between departments requires both Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance savings. In a supplemental appropriation, can be done at any time during the year, but transfers can only be done in the second half of the year. So that's where it sort of gets complicated. And there are different sort of rules and sort of priorities, like new fees or grants that weren't budgeted can be appropriated at any time during the year. Dipping into reserves has generally been both our practice and the Board of Selectmen's practice not to do that, except in the case of an emergency, because we want the public to use the public funds as they've given us a bottom line budget. Where both boards are open to moving appropriation so long as we don't exceed the total appropriation by the public. Although sometimes, like during a pandemic or the October 2011 storm, you do need to go above what is budgeted, and this lays out the process for doing that. So those are the main points that I have. And that's one thing that did come up in talking both with Sean, Amy, and Rob is one suggestion during the budget process that is related to this policy, although not in the policy, is that we might ask the Board of Selectmen to consider budgeting a $50,000 contingency appropriation funded from capital reserves. Can you hear me, Linda? Oh,
Linda, you're muted, but yeah, you fade in, and when you're louder when you're closer to the computer.
Okay, so sorry for the big face. But one of the recommendations that we had come up with, talking both Rob and Amy and Sean, was during the budget process for the Board of Selectmen to consider budgeting a $50,000 contingency appropriation from capital reserves, because that's not a tax increase, it's using a reserve number. So it wouldn't impact citizens, and that would permit staff and the Board of Selectmen to make an expenditure for an equipment failure or for an urgent need without Board of Finance approval. And then they can use end of year savings that they may garnish to replenish the capital reserve fund. And so that would just make an easier transition and less approval. It's a pre-approval, not a tax increase, because we're using funds that already exist. So that's one thing that you may see in the budget process this year. So I just wanted to highlight that now. That's it.
Yeah, so you think back to the boiler, was the ice rink? That doesn't sound right. It was something at the ice rink, but it could have been done that way, and it's fine. And 50,000 seems like an okay number, but if you have a different feeling about that, we can talk about that next time, but be prepared to, if you don't think that's the right number, let us know beforehand so we can get a compromise and have an approval on this policy next week or next month if we can. All right. Any other questions about it? If you have a chance to go through it again, I think it's pretty well thought out. Covers.
Well, I agree. And great work. A lot of work goes on to this. I would just amplify your remarks about one of the values of this that allows us to know what the process is. I would just expand that. I hope it allows the Board of Education, the Board of Selectmen, and the town government to also concur on what the process is, because what we don't want to run into is when there is an extraordinary situation that we're not in agreement as to what the process is, or worse, that an action is taken and then somebody cries foul and says that it's not legitimate because it does not follow the rules of the road. So I see this as terrific and a great contribution, but not just for the Board of Finance.
Yeah, so we did try to use charter and state law. This is not sort of our opinion as to what it is. This is actually the process as outlined in the charter. So we did try to do it with that opinion, and we just thought it would be helpful. I know Cheryl Cook asked that we clarify the process. They had made a supplemental. And so this just clarifies. And in some ways, this is I think in all ways, this is actually the practice of the town for the last decade and a half that I've been on the board. So there's no change here in terms of what we do, other than to try and sort of neaten it and give options. The only thing that's different is, and this would be in the budget, not in the policy, is the use of the 50,000 contingency from the reserves would just make for a smoother process. That said, we can discuss that later, or even a budget or at the next meeting.
So I'm going to, it's not sort of a tangential to this particular policy, but I'm going to go back to Linda. When you and I first came on the board, we had a lot of very old and unupdated policies, and Linda really led the charge in trying to get us to focus on the oldest, and some of them were 20, 30 years since they'd been updated. It was frightening. Could you, Amy, look at all of the policies of the Board of Finance and just say, you know, when did we look at them last? Because it's, I'm thinking now it's been at least 5 or 6 years since we started that, Linda, when I first came on the board, but that was one of the things we were working on. Barbara was still there. Yep. So just so we have a sense that we don't have anything now that's, because the years roll by and pretty soon, even if you don't have to do a wholesale update, you should at least look at and, you know, sort of verify that it's still current and operating the way we practice. We found things that were things we were doing were very different than what the policy said. So, all right, I'm not looking for a major project here. I just give us an update on sort of what the status of the policies are. Okay, is that all right? Okay. Next is a review of the town and Board of Ed savings initiatives. And again, I would say we had this down originally as just a sort of a discussion topic. And I appreciate the insert in the package, Amy, that again codifies things that have been going on for some of them quite a while and more recently. As we think about this, again, this is an initiative that goes back even to before I was first on the board, which was something we sort of a spend to save kind of programs where we were asking department heads of both the Board of Ed and the town officials to look for places where, instead of just doing it the same old way, if we could figure out a way to spend some money that would ultimately save money over time, so that because of the built-in bias against either capital projects or upping operating budgets today, you know, you were tending not to spend them. So we were trying to change the mindset around to finding ways so we could spend money today and save money, you know, for a long period. And again, the Eversource purchase of street lighting and some of those things are really poster childs for children for these kind of projects. And so it's been a while since we talked about this. And again, I think don't necessarily want to go through the whole list, but I want to get back into thinking about that as part of the budgeting process going forward. So,
and can I add, Rob, that sure. You know, several years ago, and I can't recall if it was when you were already on the board, Rob, or if it was before that, we actually had a process of kind of a conversation of all of the Board of Finance members coming up with ideas as well, and provided, you know, some of them just came from the public, some of them came from, you know, pulling them out of the air, whatever. But there was there were meetings where we would provide suggestions and then ask the Board of Ed and the Board of Selectmen to reply to those. And so I'd advocate that, you know, each of us maybe send Amy or you, Rob, our thoughts, and you can put them all together in a list and share those with the respective other boards. There actually is state law that specifically addresses having the Board of Finance provide cost-saving ideas to the Board of Ed, as I recall, but I think the Board of Selectmen as well. Just brainstorm.
Let's do that. And I think you should, we'll encourage our members to do it and copy me and Amy, and we'll figure out how to share that information with the other two boards. And I think this will be part of our all three boards work at the tri-board meeting that we do here not too many months away. So we should start working on that. That's good. Going through the list, anything jump out at you? I thought it was pretty comprehensive, and I thought the idea of looking back was actually an appropriate way to do it. But you know, the ones where we can find long-term savings from some capital investments today are the ones that I think will prove to be most beneficial long-term.
I think it's great. I had sometimes trouble reading it on the second page, the $1 million one. Okay, Department is police. The initiative project is public safety radio replacement. The savings are $1 million. It is project savings. Partnering with a fire department, purchased owned bottles. 5-year aggregate. Now, how do you save $1 million by purchasing your own bottles? Offer a radio system. I mean, I don't understand it.
You're on mute.
Yeah, so I think that relates to, this is a presentation question. It relates to the oxygen supply management below.
What's that got to do with the radio system?
It doesn't. It's just it's lining up different. If you were to print this differently.
Yeah, it's just on the wrong line, Art.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying. So the description starts on take the line $1 million project savings, and it stops with partnering with the fire department. So it starts above redundancy and use of current infrastructures by partnering with the fire department. That's the whole explanation. The explanation of the oxygen supply management saved $2,325 because they purchased their own bottles, 5-year aggregate.
I see. So if you put a period after fire department, I get it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it did run together. It took a little bit of unscrambling, but
got it.
You're very astute there, Arthur, as we know for sure that you can in fact only save $2,325 by buying your own bottle as opposed to $1 million.
I was looking for a clue there.
Okay. I love these meetings. The sheer entertainment value alone is worth what we get paid for it, right? Okay.
Rob, I have a question when you're ready.
Sure.
This is just a follow-up to a question we had asked earlier with the health district. I know the health district was looking to get some ARPA funds from the participating towns, and we had requested that our town look into whether the health district was going to be applying for FEMA funding. I know there was some concern about their capacity to apply, but FEMA does permit hiring a consultant to help with the applications. And since that time, the GFOA came out with best practices for towns using ARPA money, and they really emphasize use other dedicated grants and programs first whenever possible, and save ARPA for priorities that are not eligible for other federal and state assistance programs. And based on what you had conveyed to us earlier, it does appear that some of the health district spending is eligible for FEMA. So I just wanted to get an update on what's happening in that area. Thank you.
I know Melissa did circle back with the health district, and she did give a response. So let me follow up with Melissa and close the loop.
Just one more question. I know we authorized and the Board of Selectmen recommended that we hire another person in the tax assessment office, and that we were hoping that with that extra person, we would be able to capture more lost revenues. And I was wondering if we can get an update on the savings generated there.
For the one that was approved during the 22 budget, so that person hasn't been hired yet. So right now, probably no update. But yeah, as that person comes on board, Francine is going to be tracking the amount of savings coming out of that position.
And then my last just question for the Tri-Board, if you could help us understand sort of what regional initiatives are being considered prospectively from the Board of Ed or the town. Thank you.
I should know this, but when's the Tri-Board meeting? In November, or do we usually do it after the election, or does that even matter?
Yeah, it's usually in November, and we haven't set the date yet, so it's open.
Okay.
But Rob, didn't we make a commitment some months back that we were going to try to start focusing on capital and in some sort of a Tri-Board fashion a bit earlier?
Commitment's a strong word. I had it was a strong suggestion on my part when I spoke to the Board of Selectmen.
That's right. I couldn't remember how that came up.
Some follow-up. They did bring it up. They did discuss it. I mean, that's weird. I was speaking in public audience, and
Right.
so there could be no reaction to my encouraging words. But they did discuss it at a subsequent meeting. I think there was, some nodding. Well, that might work, might not. There was no real groundswell to do it. We haven't pushed it from our side either. So, with the summer nearly over, I think, I think it's more important for us. I think it's important for us to have a balanced approach to the tri-board, since we're talking about this. A balanced approach. I think in the last 2 or 3 years, we've tasked ourselves with coming up with guidance for the Board of Ed and the Board of Selectmen. And so they come to the meeting waiting for us to tell them what the percentage is. And I think that's sort of by practice. I would much rather now have each group come and present what the issues they're dealing with are. And, like for us, those were obvious last year. The pension thing was big. The insurance, all of the standard things that we need to do. And it was really the pension step down in assumed rate, and the actuarial tables, those things, among other things. And so I think we might need more than one board admit, but I don't want to have that. I would prefer that this meeting not be a Board of Finance talks to them meeting. And I think that puts them on the offense or defense, about what we're going to propose. I would much rather have it be a conversation, and I'll reach out to both Susan, Selena, and whoever the new first select person is, to be sure that we each develop agendas for that meeting, so it's not our agenda and then they respond. I hope that will make it more collegial, more productive, and it may take a couple meetings to get down to where we are, in an iterative process. I don't know how many tri-board meetings we can have, but we certainly can be interactive after that meeting in a way that makes it more productive.
Rob?
Yeah.
I think that's a great suggestion. One thing that might be helpful for the 3 boards is to get presentations in advance so we all have a time to.
Right.
But the other thing I did want to mention to the Board of Selectmen's credit, their invitation to discuss ARPA is really an invitation to discuss
exactly
capital, because we can offset some of our capital expenditures or plan for capital expenditures that they're related. Although limited, to Rob's point, as to what we can use ARPA for, they are related to capital, and that conversation will dovetail with the capital conversation.
Yeah, and so that's sort of what I was thinking we were going to try to do earlier too, was have capital conversation come a lot earlier in the process. And I don't know if that's, planned for or possible, but it seems like we've got capital stuff really late in the budget process.
It always gets left to the very end, and then it's an afterthought. And I think it's
a big part of the budget.
Yeah, huge. Yeah. Okay. All right, good. Next item is the approval of the minutes. I think there were a couple of typo edits and things made already, but otherwise I thought they captured it. I mean, there was only about 3.5 minutes of actual meeting to capture. I slopped way over the hour already today. It's just not good. All right, so we'll adopt those. I guess.
I'll move adoption.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's done. Communications, the building report continues to be robust, right? Great. That's all we really have for tonight. I know we love to spend more time with each other, but we came close. I would say we came as close as we could have to having an actual meeting, but the Board of Selectmen decided to go back to virtual, and the mask requirements just say chill out for at least another month or so.
I think that's a wise move.
Yeah. Yeah. And I actually ran into Lisa at Jersey Mike's. By the way, if you haven't heard, it's the biggest thing in town, Jersey Mike's. That's not a dig on anybody else that makes sandwiches in town, but I'm just saying it's a good deal. But it was weird because I hadn't realized we hadn't really seen each other face to face in a year and a half, really, since March. It is that long. So Zoom is it feels artificial, but it's at least we get to see each other's faces this way. So, all right.
I was in the car yesterday and the radio was on, and there was an Aretha Franklin song from years ago, and I'm pretty sure the lyrics are "Who's zooming who?" I'm sure she had no idea that.
No, she was way ahead of her time.
Way ahead of herself. But it just made me laugh. We're all zooming each other.
We're all zooming.
Thank you, SCTV.
Yeah. All right,
Rob, I noticed it's an actual pattern with you, because I think I ran into you at the sandwich line at Big Y a few weeks back. So I think it's a pattern.
I'm spreading myself around, Kevin. You know, yeah, that's true. That is true. Yeah.
Hitting the local businesses.
All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Because now we're going to have to put in at 6:19 now.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Good meeting, guys.
All right. Thanks.